Welcome to Reality World. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Angularjs project structure. For that, I'm going to take one simple web application as an example, that is campus management or college management. So in that campus management application, we can have these modules or features: students module, faculty module, accounts module, library module, labs module, and examination module. Okay, these are all the features or modules resides in our web application. And coming to AngularJS file structure, how can we create those modules as a project? First of all, we can have a web application in the root level, and inside that web application we can have scripts folder. In that scripts folder, we are going to create one folder for our AngularJS application called single page application. SPA is nothing but single page application. Inside that single page application, we are going to create a folder for students module, and another folder for faculty module, another folder for accounts module. Like this, we will create separate folders for each and every module or feature, and app.js for our AngularJS application JavaScript file. Okay, this is how we can create. AngularJS web application is the root level, and scripts is the folder under that web application. Under that scripts folder, we created SPA folder, single page application folder. That is our AngularJS custom web application folder. We are going to write our AngularJS code related to this application inside that SPA folder. Accounts is a module folder for account section related work. Examination folder is for examination related work. So all these are the modules inside our application. App.js is a root AngularJS application file. Coming to AngularJS file structure in depth in a module. Let's take how can we create file structure inside students module. Inside students module, we are going to have directives or views. That is a folder. Inside that folder, we are going to have a students view.html file, and if you want to render that HTML as a directive, you can create directive.js. That's optional. Otherwise, you can directly include that HTML file into your root HTML file. Okay, if you want to include that HTML file into root directory using it as a directive, you can create students directive. Okay, if you want to maintain directive structure. Otherwise, you can directly include that HTML file using include tag. Yep. And students controller, dedicated controller for students module, and a dedicated service, students service for students module. If you want to create this students complete data or students file structure or students complete coding as a separate module, you can create students module.app.js. That one is optional. If you want to go with modular structure, you can use this students module.app.js. This one is optional. You can directly work without this, without creating students module. Okay, this is how we will create all these files. Under students module or feature, we are going to have directives folder. In that directives folder, if you want, you can create students directive.js, students view.html. So if you are creating a directive, so you are going to include your HTML file as a directive. Students controller and students service and students module.app.js. Okay, this is how our file structure is going to be an AngularJS project inside a module. This is how we will separate our files. Actually, in many projects, we will separate files based on the types. But here in case of AngularJS single page application, right, we are going to separate files based on the feature relativeness. Okay, not based on the type. Normally we will separate all JS files into one folder, all HTML files into one folder, like that. But to make maintenance easy, we are separating based on the feature or module. Yeah, next, common service. If you are setting up a project, you definitely need some common services, like in sometimes you need to get data from remote API services, sometimes you need to get validation services, sometimes you need to store some of your data in your local storage, like that you need some common services. So we are going to build data service to get data from remote APIs, data hub service to store data in your local storage or in your local AngularJS service, validation service to facilitate different validations for your web application, common validations like is valid email, is valid mobile number, like that, is number numeric text box, like that. If you want to provide some validations throughout your application, you can provide them through this validation service at one place. Common utilities. If you want to create some common functions or common utilities for your total project, you can put it under this service. This is how we are going to create services, common services. We are going to have common folder under SPA, single page application. Inside that common folder, we are going to have common services. These are common services. If you want to add common controllers, you can add one more folder under common folder called common controllers. Okay, yeah, next. This is our total AngularJS web application data flow happens. How our we are building AngularJS application, right? We are setting up AngularJS project structure. Inside that AngularJS project structure, how the data flow could be. Okay, how should data flow would happen inside our application? We also restrict to that. So this slide will explain how data flow will happen in our application. Let's look at that step by step. This is our students module, this is our accounts module, this is labs module, this is examination module. Okay, these are all the modules inside our web application. If you want to look at real file structure, you can actually. This is my AngularJS web application. I'm using Visual Studio tool to demonstrate this. This is my ASP.NET MVC application, web application. This is my scripts folder. This scripts folder, under this scripts folder is common for every application, PHP or Java or everything. So inside this Angular core, I just downloaded Angular library file, Angular framework file. I just added this. This is Angular framework file. So I put it in under Angular core folder, and this is my application, SPA, single page application. This is accounts. As we discussed, I just created file structure. Okay, this is common folder. I have one controller, common controller. I have one services, different services, common services. These are common services. This is common controller. Yeah, this is my app.js file. Inside app.js, I'm creating root module called campus management. So this campus management is dependent on all these modules: accounts module, students module, library module, labs module, faculty module, examination module. So I have created each and every feature as a module. So I can easily add them to my main module. This is my main module. So the advantages of this modular structure is it will solve some naming convention issues, namespaces issues, and your project is more cleaner. Okay, so where am I creating these modules? Inside your feature, every module, you are going to have accounts module.app.js. This is accounts module. I didn't create account service. This is accounts module service, a module created. And examination, this is examination module created. This is faculty module created. Like this, I have created separate modules for each feature. Okay, so I'm adding all those modules to my main module. Okay, these are dependent modules. These are dependent modules for my main module. First, let's look at the data flow. Okay, these are all the modules I have created. We already saw in our project structure. Each module is going to have view, that is HTML file, and a controller, JS file, Angular controller, and Angular service, and every module contains all these three components: view, controller, service. And the data flow between these three components, we will communicate from view to controller. If somebody clicks on a button on a view, it will immediately submits to controller, not to service. Then controller will interact with service. Okay. Then in each and every module, this is going to happen. View communicates with controller, controller communicates with service. Okay. And data hub service, this data hub service is a local AngularJS service. This is going to store JavaScript objects. If you want to store logged in user information, you need some JavaScript object. Okay, we are going to create data hub service. Data hub service will hold all the data for your application. So if you want to store logged in user information to use across your application, you can store that in your data hub service. This is going to store all JavaScript objects. This is Angular simple service only, but we are going to use this as a data storage service for our application. Okay. Yep. If you want to get data from data hub service, you can get. If you want to put data into your data hub service, you can put. Okay, that is two-way communication. And from your accounts module, labs module, like this for every module. Okay. Then data service, this data service is basically to communicate with your remote services. Okay, if you want to get some data from your remote services, remotely hosted services. Okay, if you want to display weather information in your application, you need to consume weather services, remotely hosted weather services. To communicate with the remote services, you need data service, $http Angular services, right? For that, we created data service. So we are creating only one service to communicate with remote services. So that will make our maintenance job very easy. Okay, if you use $http wherever you want, if you want remote service communication in 50 places, if you use $http service in 50 places, if suppose if you want to change little bit callback function, you need to change in 50 places. Instead of that, we can use this structure. This will simplify your maintenance job. If you use data service, separate data service, Angular service, if you want to use this in 50 places, you just need to inject this data service in 50 places. If you want to modify something in remote API communication, you just need to change inside data service, not in 50 places. Okay, from your module you'll communicate to data service. This data service will, this is all happening inside a browser. Okay, this data flow, complete data flow is happening inside a browser till now. Now till this data service, this will happen inside a browser. Now this is trying to communicate to remote service. For that, you can directly communicate to remote service, or you can directly indirectly communicate to remote service. Like, first you can communicate to, first you can communicate to your server side controller. A web application can have both client side and server side. If you are using ASP.NET or PHP or JSP Java related, you are going to have server side and client side developments. So if you are using that structure, first you need to communicate to your server side controller. As I am using ASP.NET MVC, I will communicate to ASP.NET MVC controller first. Okay. If you are not using any server structure, you can directly communicate from data service to remote API service. Not a problem. Okay. Because I am using server side technology also, I am communicating to server side controller. From this server side controller, I will prepare my request, then I communicate with remote API services. These are the services: student service, faculty service, built, right? Something, this is accounts, examination, libraries, labs, like this. So I made a request, then I get the response from remote API services. I get the response from remote API services to my server side controller. Then my server side controller will pass that on to data service. This data service will callback function we are sending from students module or whatever the module we are calling. So like this data flow will happen. Okay. AngularJS project in action. In action, when our AngularJS project is running live, these are the components loaded into client, loaded into server, loaded into remote API services. Okay, web client side. Web client side means inside a browser. Inside a browser, we are going to have Angular services, Angular controllers, Angular views, and HTML files. Inside web server side, service or web server side, IIS or Apache or Tomcat, like this. So business logic will execute it at server side. Then some remote service calls will happen at server side, as we already saw that. Then remote API services, remote services side. This will hold all the data. Whenever somebody is requesting that service, it will return back the service data. Okay. This is Angular project in action. Then how the project communication will happen? Real time, live. So this is my browser components. Browser will first communicates to web server. Web server will communicate to remote API. Remote API will give data back to web server. Web server will give that data back to browser. Then browser will format that and show to the user on the browser HTML view. Okay, this is how communication will happen. Hi-fi. Yeah. This is a sample example. Okay, students module example. So how complete students module will work? Let's look at this example. This example includes students search data. So students search data means getting all search filters. How do you want to get students based on a class, based on a course, based on what reason, based on a location, like that. Okay, so you need to get all the search filters, search data, then get search results. By passing those search filters, we can get data, get search results. After getting search data, binding students data to our view. Then if you want to filter students, after binding the students, you may need to filter those. If you got 200 students, out of those 200 students, you may need to filter those students based on the age or class or their examination results or something marks, something like that. You need to filter that data. After that, you can pick a student and view his details. This is the example we are going to look at. This is all about data flow. This is students module is having view controller service. View communicates with controller, controller communicates with service, and this is data hub service is holding all student search filters. Okay, this is a JavaScript side storage service we built in AngularJS. First, we will click on get students inside a view. Okay, that view communicates with controller, controller with communicates with service. Service will uh, calculate that is there any dependency to get data from remote service. Yes, we have dependency, like we need to get search filters from data hub service. It will go to data hub service, then get data, search filters data, then it will make a data service call. By passing those filters, student filters, it will make server side MVC call. Okay, this will make remote services student service. It will communicates to remote API services. Then remote API services will process that request and it will return back the students data based on our search criteria. That will return data to our MVC controller. That MVC controller will return that data back to our AngularJS data service. Our AngularJS data service will return that data back to our student module service. That student module service will process something if needed. Then it will pass that data back to controller. Controller will pass that data on to view. View will present the data to a presenter. Here we need to mind some data flow restrictions. We cannot communicate directly from view to service. Okay, that's better to avoid. Then directly communicating controller to data service also is not allowed. It's better to restrict. Okay, yeah, let's look at code for this example. This is how I set up my project. These are all the modules as we discussed. Okay, this is my app.js file. This is my application. This is my application module, application level module I have created. You all know this, how to create a module, angular.module. This is my application level module, and these are all these are all dependent modules. Usually you'll write like this if you don't have any dependencies, but we have dependencies. We created our project as a different modules, so that I need to include those dependent modules here. So I have created every feature as a module. So I'm adding those modules to my main module. Then configuration, my main module.config. So I want to config my application route enabled. So I'm adding routing feature, routing capability to my application. So this is my config folder. This is my config object, JavaScript object. I'm giving this configuration to my root module. Okay, so this is config.inject is basically to inject dependent services. Okay, route provider service. I need route provider service to make my application work for route service enabled. Just a minute. Yeah, done. Yeah, we are injecting route provider service here. Then I'm saying that when the path is this, that means root path. render this scripts spa home index.html. This is my root file. Then I'm going to use root controller for this root file. Root controller is common for all the directives, all the views, all inside views. Okay. Then when user clicks on students link, main path slash students, render this students view. We have created this, right? Scripts spa students module, then directives students view. We just created. This is the file under spa students directives students view. Okay, if user clicks on accounts, then render this accounts view. Controller is accounts controller. Okay, for this view use students controller. To get the data it will use students controller. Okay, this is how we will set up our route config. If this doesn't match any path mentioned here, it will redirect to root path otherwise. Okay, this is how we will set up routing for our main module. Then setting up main module is done. Setting up main module is done. Then creating a module. This is how we will create a module, students module. Okay, we are creating students module. There are no dependent modules for this. Okay, so that we are passing empty array. Then how to create a controller? This is a controller, students controller. So we are creating students controller here. Here we need to pass students module, not main module. I want to create students controller. I want to create students controller. I want to create students controller on top of students module. Okay, so that I'm passing my students module. This is how you will read already created module. So here I'm reading my students module. I'm passing to this anonymous function. Okay, this is self-calling function. This is self-calling function, and for that function I'm passing Angular student module as a parameter, and it will catch here. Then it will add controller to my student module. Okay, this is my students controller. This is my function, students controller function. This is my injection, dependency injection for my students controller. Here I am injecting $scope and student service. Inside the controller we discussed data flow. From controller you can communicate to your service, local service, students controller to student service. Then student service will communicate to data service. Okay, this is how we need to communicate. We need to communicate student controller to student service, so that we are injecting student service. Okay, so why we need to inject like this? If you want to minify your JavaScript files, if you want to, you can actually remove this. This dependency injection also works for you, but this type of dependency injection will fail in case of dependency injection will fail in case of minification. In minification techniques will rename this. If this got renamed, Angular is unable to find out this random services. So for that we need to inject as a strings. Okay, minification techniques will not modify strings. If something is quoted, something is mentioned as a string, minification technique will make them remains as same. Okay, minification technique won't modify strings, so that this is the safest. This is safer way to inject dependency injection inside Angularjs. Okay, there is one more way to inject dependency injection. you can actually inject here directly inside your function. This is how you will create students controller. Then coming to students service. Students service. This is student service. Here also I am creating student service on top of student module. Here it's my service creation, student service. This is my function, students function. Then this is my dependency injection. See that my student service is depending upon data hub service and data service. Data hub service is to get search filters, student search filters, and a data service is to make remote API call. See this. From this data hub service, I'll get filters. Then using those filters, I'll do remote API call using data service. Here I'm returning data directly here. If I want, I can data service dot get students. I'll do this remote call. For this, I need to pass the URL first. This is my URL. Then I need to pass the data, something search filters data I fetched from data hub service. Then I need to give this success callback function, success callback, success callback results. It's going to get results. Function error callback error. Okay, this is my success callback. I will pass this to my data service error callback. I'll pass to my data service. So this is how I will call my data service. This data service will do service call for this URL. Then by it will pass these search filters data to this service. If the service communication is successfully completed, if it got response from that particular service, it will call this success callback function we are passing. If it got failed, if it got failed getting response from that particular service, it will call error callback. These are promise functions inside Angularjs. Okay, this is how we will communicate to data service. Then directives. This is our directive view. Didn't have anything. I just want to add something. Div. I want to use controller. What is my controller? Students CTRL students controller. This is my h1. Welcome to students widget. Students module like this. So this is my view. My view is using students controller, students view, and creating directive. This is how we will create directive. App.directive. We are creating this students directive on top of students module, not on main module. Okay, as we are adding this student module to our main module, all this will add to main module, not a problem. So this is our students directive. This is our students directive. I'm creating directive as an element. E means element. Then replace means this is going to replace directive tag with this HTML. Then this is my template URL. This is how we will create our directive. If we want to say comma controller. You can add controller name also, controller, students controller. Okay, like this. This is how we will build our AngularJS application. Okay, yeah. Thank you for watching.